One thing is clear. If you live in regional Australia, you will be punished by a Labor government each and every time because, largely, you don't vote Labor. Perfect example of that is the climate policy, which is just the reheated version of Bill Shorten's, and now the reheated Julia Gillard live export position. The Agriculture Minister, Murray Watt, who lives in Brisbane, has said that this industry is going to be over very soon, the live sheep export industry. David Littleproud is the Nationals leader and understandably can see the forest from the trees here and knows what happened last time and what's about to happen this time. Nice to see you, David. This is all fun for the inner city on Twitter and a way to hold off the Greens from taking seats in southeast Queensland. But in the real world, there's about 500,000 head of sheep that are exported every single year. Behind that, businesses and families who need to export those sheep.
Yeah, mate, there's about 3,000 Western Australian families that won't have a future under this. There's nearly $100 million that comes back into the Western Australian economy. And for all the moral virtues, and not only the Labor Party, but also these animal activists, all they will do by shutting down the Australian live sheep export industry is export animal welfare standards to countries like Sudan and Ethiopia. They don't have the animal welfare standards that we do. We can actually measure the pants per minute on those boats in the time that they're on there. We measure the flow of air through those boats. We measure, in fact, the length of the wool before we put them on the boat and the actual size of the sheep in weight before we put them on the boat. Because we've done the science, we've moved away from a mortality to an animal welfare model, and we have the best standards in the world. The sheep industry acknowledged they got things wrong, but we reformed it. And there was issues with the cattle industry. They got a second chance. Where's the second chance for Western Australian producers who have done the right thing all through the supply chains? This is world leading, and we are going to cut and run. That's not the Australian way. And Murray Watt, a lawyer from Brisbane, really doesn't understand it. And the unintended consequences of this is that many Western Australian families are going to really hurt out of this.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned before, about 3,000 people, 3,000 families. Now, Murray Watt will claim, and the Labor Party says, oh, well, we're giving you a couple of years heads up here. We're giving you a chance to transition your business. Has this bloke been on a farm? Is this bloke aware of why certain things happen in certain parts of the country? Is he aware that, while I know the preference for every acreage is to turn it into solar panels, some people might not want to do that with their intergenerational bit of Australia?
Well, this is their business model, mate, is what they're trying to do is to close it down slowly and quietly. And what they'll do in 2025 is say, see, the industry fell apart. They're not exporting anyway because what they're trying to do is break investment confidence now from the industry, from the farm gate, all the way through, whether that be the trucking companies, the feeding companies, the stockmen, the vets, and say, oh, well, there's no industry there in the future, so we're going away. And so they can say, hey, look, it wasn't our fault anyway. It was closing down. So that's why the Nationals have made it clear. No matter when we get back in, we are making a commitment that we will reinstate the live sheep export industry to Western Australia and any other part of the country wants to do it. That is common sense. That's a fair go, and we should stay and do it because we've got a responsibility as a good global citizen to lead the world in animal welfare standards, where we can count and we have stocking density rates of how many sheep we can put on a boat. Some of these other countries just put as many as they can fit on, and they get paid for how many's left when they get there. That is a perverse animal welfare outcome, and for all these animal activists, you should dig deep into your moral compass and realise you are nothing but hypocrites.
One of the many downsides of the type of government that we've got right now is because the National Party and coalition, basically, the Libs can't do anything without the Nats, Nats can't do anything without the Libs. It means there's a constant conversation about regional Australia at the same time as balancing the interests of the city. As soon as you change that dynamic, basically you see that the coverage of issues like this goes down the back of the bus. And it's because it doesn't produce question time drama, it doesn't produce, coalition agreement drama, it doesn't produce will they or won't they spill drama. But the actual people who get affected by this, part of the reason the government's able to get away with things as blatant as this is because much of the media basically starts to tighten its focus in on those cities and people outside of them can go jump.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's happening because no one's taking an interest in this other than you and a few local media in WA. And it is a big national issue because this has contagion onto live cattle as well. They've been there before and in fact they cost you. and they're costing you now about $2 billion in compensation because of the knee-jerk reaction they took in banning the industry last time. So this is the model of trying to do it now. They're just slowly going to do rural Australia over. And we'll say to Murray Watt, if he's so convicted on this, then put his science, Australian science, against the science of animal welfare standards in the countries we're competing with. Let's see how far he goes with that. Just use some common sense, come forward and let's have the debate. And I've got to say, at long last, we're seeing some of these industry groups stand up. We've been behind the scenes saying you've got to show some, because otherwise this is how they're going to do it. And it's great to see that the peak bodies have now finally grown some spine and got out of the corner, carrying the corner and having a red hot crack. This is just one of the issues in regional Australia that we can't look left and right when we make some noise. We need to see them behind us, because that is actually how we get greater media attention, is when we do have these peak bodies showing some courage and conviction of what's right for regional Australia, but what's right for this country.